Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We are glad that you're here. I'm Steve,
And I'm Scott.
and together we're Backyard Musing Science and Technology channel.
Yeah, we are talking about an interesting topic today. This one has been in the news lately. It's a little on the political side, but it's got definitely science attached to it, technology attached to it. But yeah, kind of interesting topic here. So let's just get into it.
Based on reports from April 7th, 2026, President Donald Trump made the following statement regarding Iran on his Truth Social platform on April 7th during a standoff regarding the Strait of Hormuz. He said, quote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." And then he added, "I don't want that to happen, but it probably will." Sounds like a threat, right?
Yeah. But he has a way of saying stuff and trying to stir up the pot.
Yeah.
And it's not. I don't think we could take everything that he says literally, but in this particular case, I mean, they've been pounding Iran pretty good, and some of the neighboring countries there. And I don't know at this point, the mullahs or whoever is really running that country, they're being pretty careless with their country and their stuff and their people, which, well, we know they've been careless about their people. So, but yeah, I don't know if I would want to cross this guy because he means business here. So anyway, President Trump's critics have encouraged invoking the 25th Amendment based on these threats, which is pretty extreme. Representative John Larson filed 13 articles of impeachment. Was President Trump impeached for war crimes, or President Truman? Sorry, was President Truman impeached for war crimes after dropping 2 nuclear devices over the Japan cities? No. Japan's culture pivoted, but it did not die. In fact, we helped kind of bring that country back.
It's important to note that even though the nuclear blast that killed hundreds of thousands of people, the culture was not destroyed. People were destroyed, right. But you had an emperor then, before the bombs. You have an emperor now. When I say the culture pivoted, like baseball, they've got an amazing baseball farm system where, Shohei Ohtani,
right?
Japanese baseball, he's like over here, he's a megastar. He's like a goat.
Yeah, and the kind of goat you want, right? I mean, he's not all flashy. He's not crazy. He's a pretty humble guy, which I think is cultural, right? For the most part, they're very humble people.
Yeah.
And but yeah, as far as talent, when it comes to baseball or probably whatever he wants to do, he's amazing.
And you said humble. I don't think that was the case before World War II. I think they had hubris because they thought they were a power, and that's what led them, because the oil embargo, that's what led them to attack. That they thought they could take on the sleeping bear of the United States. So
are we talking Japan or are we talking Iran?
Japan. Yeah. And I want to point out, in those articles of impeachment, one was for piracy, which was confiscating the Venezuelan ships, right? And another was murder for destroying the fast boats, the narcotics fast boats, which Democrats seem to think they could be fishermen. So they're switching and changing things to fit their narrative. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go on. Civilization is the stage of human social and cultural development and organization that is considered most advanced. Culture, because it said cultural development, culture is the shared set of beliefs, values, customs, behaviors, and artifacts that characterize a group or society, right? So those statues, the Persian statues, would be part of the culture. Civilization and culture are not a people. They are products of a people. Does that make sense?
Right. Almost like idol worship in a way. But it's, kind of. But I don't have a problem with people putting up statues of people that have been, great or help them or stuff. And, you know, like we have here, although some of them have been torn down in the last decade or so, but
but look at, like
yeah.
you said, look at the Jews in the Old Testament. They were notorious for worshiping groves of trees, and they created a golden calf to worship, and that's no longer the case. So that culture has died, right?
Right. But
Because they don't do that now.
but the Jews are still around.
Still, Jews are still around.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. In addition to this quote, Trump stated that every bridge in Iran will be decimated and all power plants would be burning, exploding, and never to be used again if demands were not met. So how does a civilization die? Or in other words, how does human social and cultural development, the shared sets of beliefs, values, customs, behaviors, and artifacts that characterize a group or society and organization that is considered most advanced, die? So yeah.
Right. Not the people. Democrats try to twist this and say genocide. And this is not a genocide.
Right. It's like writing down a bunch of ideas on a piece of paper and then getting to the end and saying, nah, this is not going to work. And you just wad it up and throw it in the trash can.
Well,
if that's a genocide, okay.
That's
right.
That's rather reductive, but I mean, essentially that's exactly that. But imagine the papers all across the country, and then you destroy those papers. Yeah. But today, what has replaced paper, Scott? Social media, digits, electrons, right? I mean, look, at church, I know one of our friends brought his scriptures up to the podium yesterday to give his talk, but how often do you see people that they're using their devices to teach from, to give talks from, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
In today's society with interconnectivity and digital social interaction, arguably non-nuclear EMPs, in addition to the physical destruction of all bridges and power plants in the country, would cause a civilization to die. And we're going to explain this.
Okay, so we got a slide, right?
Yeah, let me get it up here. I'm going to put the whole slide. Let me just explain this slide before you launch in, Scott.
Okay.
So the most obvious thing that you can see on the left, it looks like the North Pole and South Pole without the colors, it's electromagnetic, right? And the colors are the effectiveness of the pulse. At the center, it's the most deadliest, 100%. When I say deadly, I mean to electronics. And then as you pulse outward, and you can see the scale here, 200 kilometers. So I made a 400 kilometer diameter and a 100 kilometer diameter, and I put the 100 right at ground. And well, each one is centered so that you can see the effectiveness. So at 400 kilometers, the outer effectiveness is down to 30%, and the inner circle, it's like down from 100 to 90% effective. And so I've listed the definitions of what these components of the EMP blast, the pulse, is. So I'm going to leave that up and let you guys look at it while we continue the presentation.
Yeah. So in other words, if you're living in Iran and you're close to a bridge or you're close to a power plant, you might want to maybe move out a little bit, right?
I'm just saying.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. Detonating a non-nuclear electromagnetic pulse, or an NNEMP, over a large metro area would cause immediate, widespread failure of the electrical grid, telecommunications, and electronics, resulting in a sudden collapse of critical infrastructure. And we've talked about that here too as well, right?
We have. About a year and a half ago, we had a presentation about EMP and how to protect against it. And these are just surges, a huge electrical surge, and that's how you harden yourself and protect yourself. But it's cost prohibitive for the normal Joe like me and you. For athletes, actors, Democrat politicians, they could afford this,
Yeah. Transportation would cease, water sewer systems would stop, and food supply chains would fail, creating a long-term chaos and potential for massive loss of life. And there's a source listed there.
And so this is a potential loss of life. Immediately, you think hospitals. If someone was having a surgery or an ICU, they might die. And then,
right. And then you think about some of the chaotic things that could happen too, okay? Because people like to eat. So if you're not going to be able to go to the grocery store Well, first of all, most grocery stores doors are electrically
Oh yeah,
operated.
yeah. Good
So you
point,
can't
Scott.
even get in
Yeah,
unless you go
good
to the
point.
back door or you break the glass, and that's going to cause some issues, right? And
Yeah,
then when you get in there, the registers don't work.
yep.
So even if you had cash, they're not going to. I mean, most places don't have prices um, where they can manually do it. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that probably 90% of the people that work at the registers don't know how to make change like we used to do years ago. So, it's gonna be pretty chaotic. So, and you can't pump fuel at your gas station because those are all electronic.
Yep.
Um,
So this is where food storage comes into big play. Having a
Absolutely
garden, having storage.
right. Yeah.
Okay, so the immediate effects of this EMP pulse, seconds to minutes, we're talking. You'll have the grid collapse, widespread long-term power blackouts caused by surge damage to high voltage transformers. You'll have electronics failure. I'll read this one. You read the next one, Scott. The next thing.
Okay.
Unshielded electronics, semiconductors, computers, and medical equipment would be fried. Transportation paralysis. Vehicles with modern electronics would likely stall, like War of the Worlds. You saw it with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
The electronics would likely stall. Fuel pumps would stop, halting transportation fuel supply. Communications blackout. The cell towers, radio, TV, internet infrastructure would cease to function.
Yeah. Secondary and long-term consequences. And this means like hours to weeks. The banking system. Catastrophically disrupt the banking system is by instantly destroying or damaging electronic infrastructure. It would freeze digital transactions, incapacitate ATM networks, and largely trigger a complete collapse of financial data systems. Recovery could take years, effectively reverting the economy to cash or barter.
Yeah.
But even then, and that's when, you know, things are going to come into play. Like, hey, I've got a bottle of Mountain Dew or a gallon of milk. I got a
Or
gallon of
whiskey.
milk in my
Whiskey.
refrigerator.
People
Yeah,
would want whiskey.
right. I got a gallon of milk in my and it costs under $4. But now, what is that worth to somebody who really wants it?
Yeah, but that milk
$10,
will
$100.
spoil without refrigeration. You're not going to have refrigeration.
Right. Exactly. Solar generators would come into play, right? You could,
Yep.
but then,
Well,
but
no, if it was fried, it wouldn't. If that generator was fried, the electronics not even going to work unless you have it hardened for surge protection.
yeah. Okay. Utility loss. Water treatment and sewage systems would shut down, leading to rapid sanitary issues. Food storage shortages. We just kind of talked about that. Food supplies would fail due to the lack of refrigeration and distribution capabilities. Medical emergencies. This is a big one, like you mentioned earlier. Hospitals and nursing homes would rely on backup generators if they had them or if they work, with critical care equipment failing. Societal disruptions. Again, inconsistent emergency services would likely lead to increased crime. So yeah, you're going to probably have to defend yourself.
Defend yourself, yeah.
Long-term shutdown. Restoration of the grid could take months to years, and we've seen that in just natural disasters, right?
Yeah.
When hurricanes or floods.
Look at Palisades, where the fire destroyed all these buildings.
Right.
Still, nothing been done. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, it is disgraceful. Restoration of the grid could take months to years as replacement transformers are specialized and difficult to replace.
So none of these said you die.
Right.
But you might die eventually in the hospitals or the nursing homes, right? Or starvation.
Yeah.
But it's not immediate. It's not certain.
Right. I mean? This would be a real telltale sign for our society as how evolved we've come, right? Or how good we are or how bad we are. Because let's say
put it back in the medieval times.
It could, yeah. So let's say, like I was saying about generators, okay? Normally, when you're walking on a job site and somebody's using a gasoline-powered generator, you can obviously hear that generator. It's moving. But you can't hear a solar generator. They're silent, which makes them kind of an advantage. But if I'm driving down the street or walking down the street and everybody's house is black except Mr. Jones, and he's got lights on and there's no noise, depending on how nice a guy I am I going to knock on my door and say, "Hey, Mr. Jones, how are you getting that light?" Or, "I want whatever you got that's making that light."
Yeah.
And that's
true.
that's
true.
the defensive part, right? You're going to need to defend what you got, or be willing to share. That's the other thing. Be willing to share.
So these, unlike a traditional blast wave, an EMP's reach is determined by line of sight from the detonation point to the horizon. So it has some limitations. And you saw from the slide, let me put it back up, that there's a radius to this, and the effectiveness decreases, but it's a long, goes way out though. So line of sight, so detonation at high altitudes above 20 kilometers. Now, 20 kilometers is about 60,000 feet. That's above where airplanes fly.
Right.
So
Yeah,
you'd need like a missile to do this. Okay. Detonation at high altitudes, the EMP can cover vast continent-sized regions again, but the effectiveness diminishes on the outer edges of the radius. Because the pulse travels at the speed of light in a straight line, the radius is essentially the distance to the Earth's horizon from that altitude, right? And if it were flat Earth, then it wouldn't matter, but we're a curved Earth. And that detonation, 69,000 feet, would require a missile, not an airplane.
Yeah. So that's going to be limited to who could do that, right? I mean,
how many countries can do that? Us, Russia, China, and that's it.
North Korea.
Well, yeah, I guess no. Yeah, you're North Korea.
Maybe Iran. At least before this last bombardment, they had long range missiles. I don't know. India, maybe. I don't know. Does India have capabilities to do that?
These countries know they can do it. They just don't say it. Well, Russia has said, we'll take out Europe, and this is how,
Yeah.
And the Democrats are pissed that Donald Trump is saying what we know to be a fact.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at the 20-kilometer altitude.
Yeah. Read all of those. Go ahead, read all of those.
Yeah, affects a radius of approximately 50 or 500 kilometers. 30-kilometer altitude affects a radius of approximately 600 kilometers, roughly the size of a large state.
Now, this is a radius, not a diameter, a radius.
Right. Yep. 100-kilometer altitude affects a radius of approximately 1,100 kilometers. Now you're talking about what? That's probably half of the United States, probably. It says a significant portion. 400-kilometer altitude affects a radius of approximately 2,200 kilometers. That's the entire continental, United States. So crazy.
Yeah, this is how you wipe out a civilization. Okay, let me get to the next slide here. Okay, so what I've done here is I'm going to talk these through. I've taken the map of Iran, as you can see, and then a high altitude non-nuclear EMP blast against Iran, and I've shown the most populous cities in Iran. Tehran, of course, its capital is the most populous. It looks like it might be bigger than New York City. 9.7 million people. And there's a commuter city next to it. And it's
that's more people than we have states that have less population than 9 million.
So Karaj is a commuter city to Iran. People live there and they commute to work in Iran. So those two would probably be considered one blast would take it out. All right, then there's Mashhad. You can read the population and stuff. Isfahan, you probably heard of Isfahan. Shiraz, Tabriz, and Qom. Qom is the spiritual or religious central point, very important in Iran. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So This is against Tehran and Karaj, and you can see I've shown the map so you can see where it is in the country, and then I've done a Google Earth to show the city, and this red circle, that's that 100 kilometer diameter, and you can see the graphic here that shows the blast. You can see that graphic on every slide. The effectiveness, so you'd have 90% effectiveness from the center out to the edge the red of the red circle. The electronics fried, like Scott and I described what would happen, right? And then it would diminish past that. This is, I mean, Tehran, the banking center, everything's in Tehran. It's the capital, right?
Yeah.
This alone might do it. Okay, and if this didn't alone do it, the next one that probably would be hit is Isfahan.
Well, and kind of what you're saying, I think, is that if you took out Tehran, that would cause chaos throughout that country.
Oh yeah, the government, the military headquarters,
yeah. Everything goes out from there. You know,
yeah.
It's kind of like New York or Washington D.C. Although a little light.
They'd have to move the headquarters. They'd have to move the capital to Isfahan or Qom or another city, to rebuild.
Yeah.
So this one I'm showing Isfahan. That's probably the next likeliest. I think it's 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers or 150 from Tehran. So you put one over Tehran, you put one over Isfahan, and everything in between gets affected, right? These are one of the two most populous cities. Again, the graphic is the same. The circle is 100 kilometers, and it would reach out past this graphic. And I'm showing you where it is in relation. It's really close to Tehran. All right, let's go to the next one. So I think this would be overkill. And I don't mean to use the word kill because we're not killing people. It's destroying electronics, right? Tabriz is, again, I've shown you a little more south of Tehran. And here's the effects. That diameter, that red line is the diameter. That you can see the city very populated. All right, and the next one is Qom. This would be a mistake to hit Qom because it's a spiritual center. Sorry, these words are getting mixed up here on the slide. I thought I had it wide enough so it wouldn't interfere. Yeah, this is a religious center. There's no tactical importance to this, right? This would be a mistake. All right, and then next one is Shiraz. Shiraz is a little town. It's populous, but it's like in the middle of the mountains, I think this would be a mistake to hit this area, but it's a populated area. And the next one, I think this is the last one, is Mashhad. Mashhad, as you can see, it's way in the, the east, near that little hump, the snail hump. But it's very populated, 3.5 million people. But again, it's right near the border of Turkmenistan. I think it's Turkmenistan that's there. So you would affect that country too. And I'll tell you, you definitely wouldn't want to detonate something like at Karg Island because you would take out ships that are in the Strait of Hormuz. Imagine those tankers just floating around, not able to navigate, and they just bump into each other, and that would be chaos.
It would be almost like a blockade.
Well,
yeah. I mean, you could
physical obstacles,
yeah, lot, and then of course, then you got the devastation of that area with the oil spillage,
but each country would be affected. Now, all these countries would rise up and say, "What are you doing? You just knocked out our ship,"
Right.
And I think they said, what they say, 80% of the world's energy comes through the strait.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, take us through this, Scott.
Okay, so we've got, we talked about the 6 targets, right?
Yep.
We're destroying all the bridges and power plants. And again, other than the people, there would be minimal probably amount of death, but mostly stuff would go away.
Yeah, like Japan had hundreds of thousands of people. This would affect hundreds of people, maybe thousands. I mean, killing them from the effects.
Right. Yeah, but still shut down civilization as we would know it. U.S. will need to act quickly to bring services to these cities after capitulation. This would most likely start Armageddon. And
I think so. What do you think, Scott?
yeah, well, you start taking away people's livelihoods and the way that they get by. I mean, what is Iran's main source of income? Oil, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that they wouldn't be able to pump it, they wouldn't be able to move it,
Drill
and
it, yeah.
and that would be ugly. Obviously, there would be people who want it, but if they couldn't get it, you'd have to regroup quickly. So, but yeah, and then we talked about grid collapse, electronics failure, transportation paralysis, communications blackout. And of course, the banking system, which is a big deal, utility loss, food shortages, medical emergencies, societal disruptions. That would probably cause some death and long-term shutdown. So,
Yeah. So I think this would destroy a civilization. Do you think so, Scott?
Yeah. Well, I think it would put a pretty good dent in it, if not destroy it. Yeah. It would be good. It would not be good. And when you were keying in on that one, I forget the name of the town, that was the religious nuclear
Comb.
That would be that would draw a lot of other countries into this too, right? Because they all share a lot of the same religious beliefs.
Yeah, that would be a mistake. Like I said, to hit Comb, be a mistake.
It would be like taking out the Vatican. That would be bad.
Yeah, or like Mecca.
Worldwide. Yeah, Mecca, right? Israel, Jerusalem. Although that's been tried.
but if you did an EMP pulse over Jerusalem, it would go all the way out to Jordan. It would go all the way out that far. They'd be affected.
Yeah. But yeah, religion. The religious aspect of it, you need to kind of keep that aside somehow, because that'll cause even more chaos, I think, and disruption.
So sorry this ran 27 minutes, but I mean, it's packed full of information, and we think you needed to know this. I think you needed to know.
Yeah, and you can tell us. Do you think the Democrats who are trying to impeach Trump over this statement and possible action, is it really worthy of that? I don't think so. I mean, compared to taking out 40,000 or 50,000 of your own people like they did in Iran in this last year, I would say this is not even close to that. So,
yeah. So share this with your friends, your family, and your enemies. Let's get widespread dissemination of this segment. I mean, it's very knowledgeable.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see everybody this afternoon. Thanks for listening and watching. Take care.